So now we're going to talk about flavor, which is a lot more fun than mold, yeah? And thank you for, kind of bringing that up. Good transition. I didn't
Sorry.
No, it was great. It was great. This is the best audience. You guys are great. So let's talk about flavor. We talked about mold, and we're done with that. So nobody here makes moldy syrup. It happens elsewhere, right? Nobody makes moldy syrup. So let's talk about flavor. This is what people who don't know anything about maple, they think this is what you do. Right? Yeah. They think this is what you do. That you went to the thrift store and bought every piece of plaid that was available. And you used galvanized buckets and a shoulder thing and, old snowshoes. They think that's what you do. What a nice old-timey image. Yeah. However, is this not how syrup is really made nowadays? Yeah. That's pretty much. Yes, there are still buckets out there, but a lot of it is much more technological. I think it's easier than ever to make syrup. Not that it's easy. It's still hard work. But there's a lot of technology that you can use to make that work less, which means a lot of people make more because it's, quote, easier. And if you're going to invest in all this technology, you probably have loans to pay off, correct? So you are probably going to wring every bit of syrup you can out of a season. And sometimes that is not a good strategy, except that it pays the bills. So the International Maple Syrup Institute spent about 10 years trying to get the U.S. and Canada to adopt international uniform grading standards, which they actually did finally accomplish. And part of having a uniform grading system was also so that all the conversation about maple would be with the same language, that people would understand better what maple was all about. And you could market to the public better if the public understood what maple syrup was and how unique it was. So having these international standards really helps boost the supply chain for everybody. It supports education and successful marketing strategies. So another initiative that the International Maple Institute came up with was, now that we have uniform language to talk about maple syrup, now we have all these contests and we need some uniform judging criteria. So they came up with a 28-page document. And I love it, it covers everything. So there's a uniform way of judging maple syrup now. And if you notice, well, of course you can't read it, so I put that big red arrow on there. The most points for your syrup in a contest are for the flavor. It's all about the flavor. And that's the most subjective part of trying to grade your syrup. It's easy to get the right density, or it should be. At least you have numbers to go by. It's easy to know whether it's the right color or that color or this color. It's either clear or it's not clear. But when you get to flavor, it's pretty subjective. And that's what the most points are available for. So we need to talk about how are we going to grade for flavor. So a little lesson, I guess, on flavor and your taste buds. So we talk about flavor. Usually we use those two words interchangeably. We say taste is equal to flavor. It's not really. Flavor is a mix of sensory data. And taste is just one of those senses. And the tastes, if you remember probably from elementary school, you have taste buds, right? Everybody has taste buds. And you taste, it used to be 4, sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. Now they've added a couple more tastes. And it's called umami, which is basically savory, a savory taste. And they're talking about some other ones like fatty. Is fatty a taste? I don't know. I guess if you're a flavor specialist, you can talk about these kinds of things. And they're also talking about alkaline as a taste, or metallic as a taste, or water-like as a taste. Well, we'll let this taste bud specialist worry about that one, but we'll talk about taste buds in general and so on. So, how many people say, I do all my tasting with my taste buds? Arms up, arms down? Yes? Sure, yeah, we'll go with that, right? All right, yeah. Well, not really, but we'll get into that. So, 25% of the population are super tasters. So I don't know, how many people in here? 50? So, there's 10 or 15 of you in here are super tasters. So, super tasters, raise your hands. Good, excellent. All right. And the rest of us could be trained to be super tasters. And, okay. All right. Controversy in the back of the room. We are born with about 10,000 taste buds. By the time we get older, we have about half that many. You can define older any way you want, I don't care. But as you age, you lose some of those taste buds. Too much hot syrup, too much hot coffee, too many hot peppers, you name it. We wear out our taste buds. And some other things can affect your taste buds as well. So if you have sinus issues, you develop allergies, you take up smoking and drinking, all of that can affect your taste buds. Our sensory systems can distinguish about 100,000 different flavors, which are combinations of tastes. And why is this important? Well, in 2017, there was a food and health survey that was conducted on just Americans, but I'm assuming that this is the same for Canadians. But 84% of Americans say that taste is the top driver of their food purchases. So they go into the grocery store and they look at everything that's on the shelves and they say, wow, I want that because that tastes good. And you know that that's happening because if you go down the potato chip aisle, it's an aisle now. It's not just it's not just barbecue or plain. You have a whole aisle of potato chip flavors, right? Because marketers are trying to appeal to your sense of taste, which is what you're using to buy, and your eyes. We're all different in our ability to taste, though. So flavor, which is different from taste, when we talk about the flavor, we're talking about a whole set of sensory impressions that you're getting from whatever you are tasting. And so part of that is your sense of taste and your taste buds. And some of it is how it smells. And then some of it is they're called the trigeminal senses. And those are a collection of cranial nerves that go from your mouth and your ears and your sinuses and so on and link to your brain. And these senses, and right behind your ear is the vagus nerve, and that goes back into your brain. Anyway, these senses are what help you determine chemical irritant flavors and tastes. So this was a survival strategy, you know, when we were out hunting and foraging and whatever. We didn't want to be eating toxic foods, so we have these senses that are really good at collecting these kinds of chemical flavors, air pollution, ammonia, ethanol, acetic acid, hot peppers. If we can sense those, we can prevent ourselves from something that could be lethal. Anyway, there's a lot of work that's done by food scientists to come up with new flavors, thus the potato chip aisle that's a mile long. When we talk about tasting, you generally think it's whatever I taste on my tongue. Not true. Only 20% of your tasting is actually done with your tongue. And the other 80% is what you see when you look at the food, what you hear, I'm going to talk about that for a sec, and what you smell. 80% of whether you like or don't like something is based on these senses that you determine. So there's a chef that did, a couple chefs here, that did some experiments. And this one chef, I don't know, he's a 4-star chef, somewhere in New York City. He decided to do a little experiment, and he was famous for oysters. So he served oysters to some customers, and he played the sounds of the seashore, the waves on the beach, and, you know, and served it. Oh, those were the best oysters ever. He had them come back the next week, served the same oysters, and he played the sound of cows mooing. And he polled them. Did you like last week's oysters better or this week's oysters? The oysters were from the same place. Which ones do you think they liked better? The seashore music oysters were rated higher than the cow mooing oysters. So even our sense of hearing affects our taste buds, or our sense of what we're tasting. We like it better if it sounds good to us. We like it better if it has a crunch. Why are potato chips so popular? Well, salt, fat, and crunch. They crunch. We hear them, you know, we like that. And fat content. So, yeah, anyway, we'll move on. So you can be we can be toyed with by chefs. So just beware of that. And you know, that does happen. You know, if they want you to linger at the restaurant and buy appetizers and the main course and dessert and so on, they play nice, quiet, soothing music. And if it's busy and they want you out of there, they crank the music up, you know, to a faster pace, and out you go. Anyway, so maple flavor is unique. It's unique to maple. Nothing else tastes like that. And as you know, a lot of things affect the flavor of maple. So the soil type can affect it. A lot of people believe that. There's some research that's been done. Nothing that's really significant that's proven that, but you know you can taste syrup from different areas and it will taste different. It'll be good, but it will taste different. The weather, Mother Nature, the tree health, your processing methods, all of these affect maple flavor. And we all need to remember that flavor is subjective and it's a personal preference. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and so is flavor in the taste buds of the beholder. We all like different things, and that's all okay. It's a personal preference. Some hints for you as you're making your syrup: taste it after it's cooling. You won't burn your tongue on the hot syrup, but when it cools down, what happens? It gets thicker, and if it's thicker, it tastes better because it's on your tongue longer. Right, exactly. Yep, so taste it when it's cool, and you'll get the full the full experience. You know, there are many flavors in the syrup, so you want to do that. Rinse your palate. Oh, yes?
Can you tell me what it is that makes a flavor linger in your, what is this when you taste syrup and it stays in your sinuses or whatever? What is it? Explain that. We've had people walk 30 feet from our booth and turn around and come back after they tasted syrup and buy it because it lingers. You know how it is? It lingers.
Yeah, yeah.
You taste it long after you've swallowed it.
Right.
What is that?
Yeah. So the question is, why does syrup linger? Why does the syrup flavor linger? Yeah, especially in your sinus and so on. It may be because they went like this. Sniffing it?
So
No?
Give it on a spoon.
Yeah, well, you can.
No, they don't.
I can. I can smell it on the spoon and usually get it on my nose, so then I'm breathing it for quite a while.
We do hundreds, so I mean, I see how they taste.
Yeah.
So it's not a, I tell them to inhale after.
Yeah.
Because then you can taste it.
Yeah. Well, but you know, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm not a physiologist, but I'm going to take a risk. So, everything is connected in your head. So your sinuses are connected, and when you breathe in and when you swallow and breathe in at the same time, it does, the smell molecules do get up into your sinuses. And if it's lingering on your tongue and you keep going, it was good. You're forcing that up, yeah, into your sinuses, and you know, it's all of, you have a lot of hidden nerves in your cranium, and so those are all part of your detecting flavors. It's all part of a system. And so we're not aware of that. We think it just hits our tongue and that's it. Yeah, but it is. It's up there. Some people have bigger sinuses, so when they're going, you know, it gets in there more and it hangs in there. So that's mine.
No real scientific reason to tell that person why that syrup tasted so good.
They're super tasters. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Could be. We have very, very different sensitivities. And some people can just take a tiny whiff of something and they'll talk about it for half an hour. And the rest of them are like, do you smell something? Yeah, everybody's different, so. And that's as far as I'm going to go on that because I really, you know, yeah. I'm really not a, yeah. So when you're tasting, you know, you want to taste it when it's cool. Rinse your palate so you get all the other tastes out of there. Smell your sample first. See if there's any odor. You know, if you're wondering whether this is going to be good syrup or not, by smelling it before you taste it, you can save yourself sometimes from an experience, let's say. And look at it, you know, look at it, see it with your eyes. Do you see anything in there? Do you see any swirls of color? You know, really take your time. Syrup, 99.9% of the time, syrup will be sweet, right? We're programmed to like sweet things because they're, it's a survival strategy. It's high in calories usually, and so we're all about that. But if you take your time to get past the sweet, then you can determine those other tastes that are in there, that are making up that total flavor package. And there are other things. But you got to get past the sweet, which is what hits you first. So, you know, smell it, sip it, taste it. There's a mouthfeel to food that you eat as well, especially to syrup. You know, sometimes people say, oh, I don't know, I didn't really like that syrup. It tasted thin. And to the uneducated, thin might often goes with, they've looked at it, it's golden delicate, and they don't have a lot of pronounced maple flavor in there. And And people will describe that as tasting thin. It's not that it's really thin, it's to the right density. It's that what they're saying is that there's not enough flavor in there for me. I like more. So evaluate it. You know, syrup has a quality, it has a quantity, should have a nice balance. It should go with the standard flavor class, and it's all good. Usually, it's all good. Anyone here that was in yesterday's class? Yeah, there's a couple. It's all good, right? Usually. Mostly it is. Yeah, anyway. So enjoy the differences, because there are a broad variety. So consumers benefit from the emphasis on taste. If we are all, as an industry, producing the best flavor possible, it supports the entire industry. If everybody's making great syrup, everybody is going to sell more syrup. It's not that you're going to sell more than the person down the road. You're all going to sell more syrup. And you're all going to be able to talk about it. So these are the standard grades. Golden color, delicate taste. We've pounded that one into the ground, yes. We don't have to spend a lot of time on that. We've spent, yeah. So golden color, delicate taste, exactly what it sounds like. It's a very light color, usually very sweet, not a lot of maple flavor, and useful for certain applications. It has a delicate taste. Some people really like it, some people don't. Okay. Amber color, rich taste, a little more maple flavor, a little more balance to it maybe. There's a little more maple along with the sweet, and people have different uses for that. Some like it, some don't. Dark color, robust taste. Again, now we're getting even more maple flavor. It's much more robust. People like it or they don't, and that's a good syrup as well. And then you get to the very dark and strong taste, which is great, I guess. It's what people want in the maple cleanse diet. Have you seen that? Has it made its way to Wisconsin? Ooh, yeah. The maple cleanse and super hot peppers. Anyway, very dark, really profound maple flavor, and very strong taste. So those are the standard grades. Everybody has their own preference, and it's all good. There's a couple of tools. When we're judging color or density, we have tools to use. We never really had a tool for flavor, but Center ACER came up with the flavor wheel, and then the University of Vermont came up with a map of maple. Both of these tools kind of divide the broad spectrum, the broad variety of flavors that can be in good syrup. They divided them into families, and they can be from light to strong in that family. So sometimes you get a syrup that tastes really like confectionery. You know, maybe it's not as much maple flavor as you thought, but it's the sugary flavor is what is the most prominent part of the flavor profile, and those are the confectionery family. There's sometimes the syrup is a very vanilla flavor. Sometimes it's kind of fruity. A couple of years ago, it was almost orange. Was it that way out here? A couple of years ago, it was just, the syrup was great. I mean, it tasted fine, but the color of it was like almost orangey red instead of, amber. It was really weird. So you get these different differeces. And these tools are good to use to talk with consumers so that they know that there's a broad spectrum that is partly you producing it, and it's partly Mother Nature and the weather that makes it happen. But it's still all good. Maple can pick up off flavors really easily. So you want to be very careful to protect your processing from anything that might contaminate that flavor. I had somebody that came to me once and said, "Oh, this syrup tastes like fish." I said, "Really? Well, where are you keeping it?" "Well, it's in the freezer right next to my salmon." Okay. I think you should use that syrup to make a glaze for your salmon. I think it'll be perfect. So we talked about that. But anyway, so, do protect it. These are some of the common off flavors. You can pick up off flavors from your containers, your washing process if you don't rinse well, if you get too carried away and use up too much defoamer. A common problem is not washing your filters well and storing them absolutely dry, then taking them out in the spring. They're all moldy, and you get moldy flavored syrup or musty flavored syrup. Not a good thing. These are all accidental off flavors. Nobody does this on purpose. It just happens sometimes when people get busy and they're trying to do a good job and things happen. So when you get busy, it's time to stop and think, is this going to be good, or am I going to be sorry down the road? So use new unused containers. It's a law in Maine. You're not allowed to can syrup in a used container. We had someone that entered a contest once that decided that he heated up the syrup because he thought it would bring out the flavor, and he heated it too hot, so he had niter in it, so he had to filter it out. So he grabbed the coffee carafe and put the syrup through and put it in the jar. Well, guess what? It was disqualified because it was the best coffee tasting syrup ever, but not okay in a contest. So used your maple equipment. It's made for. If you're going to enter a contest, please, please, please test your syrup before you enter it. Yeah, 99.9% of the time, it tastes great. And then there's that 0.1% of the time when, what happened to the syrup? Yeah, it can be not good, but usually it's good. So train your palate. Those of you who didn't raise your hands to say you were a super taster, you too can be a super taster, but you have to train for it. Are there any marathon runners in here? Or 10K? I don't know, 5K? 1 5K. So nobody goes out and runs a 5, 10, 50, 100, whatever, marathon without training first, right? You don't just get up one day and say, I think I'll go run in the marathon. That sounds like fun. You train for it. And so you can also train to educate your taste buds. And so, we like sweets, but you got to get past the sweet. And so as part of your training, anytime you get together in a group like this, you should have a row of 5 or 10 syrups, and everybody just goes and tastes them. You can put paper on them to make them anonymous, but taste them and then talk about them. You could do it in small groups. You can do it in a large group and say, what do you all think? Talking about it, tasting it, discussing it, that will train your palate so that you too could be a judge and experience all the fun of a contest. But you have to practice. So, I tell people to come to the grading school or our flavor workshops or whatever. We had a great day, but now you need to go home and practice. You have homework. You have to go back, get some producers together, bring your syrup, and taste. And what you'll learn from that is the range of flavors. Like in the flavor wheel, there's all these different families of flavors that are okay in maple syrup. If all you ever taste is your own syrup, that's all you're going to taste. You're not going to be able to appreciate somebody else down the road on a different soil type that has a different sort of additional flavor. So, get people together, taste each other's syrups. It's not about who's is best or who's going to win or anything like that. It's talking about the variety and how great it all is. And then, do judge a contest. It really is fun. Really, barring that picture, most of it is really fun. It's really fun to go down a line of syrups. And when you have 30 amber riches and you start in at one end and you keep going down, you can taste some really amazing, wonderful things. Maybe a couple not so great, but it's so interesting to see the differences. And there are differences, and they're all good. And that makes it really hard then to pick out the best one. But it's fun to judge. Support your industry. If everybody, when somebody makes a syrup, if they've only ever tasted their own and they're boiling on an open pan and it's smoky, but that's all they've ever tasted, the industry, and then they start selling because they added taps on or whatever, everybody pays the price if that's not a good tasting syrup. Some people like smoky flavored syrup, nothing wrong with that, but if it isn't quite as good as it could be, then that is something that hurts all of you. It's not that you're going to sell more syrup because yours is better. People, if there's a bad syrup out there and there's a new consumer who's never tried maple syrup before, that's a detriment to all of you. And I'll tell you this story. I went with a colleague and did a grading school in New Brunswick last June. And there were some issues around it. Anyway, I got up to Holton, which is right on the border, and I said, I don't have enough syrup for the density exercise. We better go buy some at the grocery store. So we went into the grocery store. I said, here's producer A, producer B, and producer C. I know them all. They all make great syrup. And then there's this jug that says Hannaford's. I said, Hannaford's doesn't make syrup. That's the grocery store name. And there was a big price difference. The Hannaford brand was $13.99. The rest of them were $17 or $18 for a quart. Like, all right, I'm going to pretend that I'm a tourist, and I've decided I'm going to try maple syrup. Which one am I going to buy? I don't know any of these people. So I'll buy the Hannaford's brand. They must know what they're doing, and it's cheaper. So, if I don't like it, then I haven't wasted this much money. So I bought the Hannaford's brand. We went off and did our thing. And I opened that jug up, and I poured some out. And I said, wow, this is supposed to be dark. It's black as tar. Well, all right, let me taste it. Oh, it was awful. It was awful. And so Hannaford's doesn't know. Somebody packed it for them and they bought it. But that experience, had I been a real tourist, that experience would have said, wow, I'm like, whoa, what's the big deal about maple syrup? I don't like this stuff. I'm going to pay this kind. Going back to Aunt Jemima. And so all of you are disadvantaged by that. And every other maple producer is disadvantaged by that. Every penny you've spent has been wasted because a bad syrup was out there. So, support the industry. Make good syrup. If you know someone down the road that's got an open pan, the smoky fire, and all that stuff, kindly talk to them. Share information. Ask them, hey, did you know if you did this, put a stack on it, we'd get the smoke out of there. Support each other because it helps all of you. Customers often think they know all about syrup. And so give them samples, talk to them about it. If they like it, they'll be back. They might be back for more.